Thank you, Reverend T. Michael Rock, for letting us hold chapel today. And greetings, good afternoon to all my friends. My name is Stacy Harder. I'm in my second year at United. I'm working towards my Master of Divinity with a concentration in spiritual direction. And I am also a member of our campus recovery group, United People in Recovery. So United People in Recovery is very grateful for the opportunity to lead this week's chapel. We're a community of United students who embrace all paths to recovery from addiction, as well as a variety of religious traditions and spiritual practices. I'm joined today by Reed Cunningham, who is going to offer our message, Keith Felicity Something, who brings a powerful piece of music, and Amy Hedrick, who will close out our time together with reading and a benediction. So, especially in light of technical difficulties, I'm going to invite you into a short meditation as we open chapel today. So we've all arrived here today from different places. Maybe you've just come from class or from a meeting, from trying to cram in the next 100 pages of your assigned reading for this week. And we've all arrived here with our own unique feelings: joy, worry, grief, fatigue, maybe a combination of some or all of those. But we have all arrived here together in this moment, in this place. So I invite you to take a few deep breaths. And allow yourself to settle into this moment. And as you breathe, just let your body settle into your seat. Relax any tense places in your body and give your mind permission just to let go and be present right here in this moment and in this place. If you want to, you can close your eyes. If not, you can just let them settle into a nice, soft gaze in front of you. Take one more deep breath in through your nose and out. And now I invite you to reflect on this question. How did you arrive here? How did you arrive here? Not just the here of this chapel at noon on a Thursday, but here as a student at United, as a professor at United, as a part of the life of this seminary. How did you arrive here? What do you see when you reflect on this question? Was there an event? Was there a person or persons who played a part in bringing you here? Let them rise to the surface of your mind. What do you feel when you see them? I invite you to take a moment and be fully present with that event or that person or persons that brought you here. If you're grateful for their influence on your life, just let them know right now. there's anything that you want them to know, I invite you to let them know in whatever way feels comfortable to you. And when you're ready, begin to bring your mind back to the present. Feel your seat supporting you. Let your eyes gently open. Take another deep breath. So I'm offering you this meditation as more than just a break from your busy day, although I'm sure you deserve it, but also because I often reflect on how I arrived here at United, pursuing a vocation that, as a recovering alcoholic and addict, I sometimes feel unworthy of. I often feel unworthy of. And so in times of doubt, it helps me to remember the people who brought me here. Hebrews 12:1 describes a great cloud of witnesses surrounding the followers of Jesus. For the early Christian church, this cloud consisted of the great holy ancestors, Noah, Abraham, Moses, Daniel, and on and on. But I have my own cloud of witnesses. I pray to them every day for strength as I follow in the path that they left behind for me. And I also call them my ancestors. There's Peyton, who called his higher power the greatest of daddies. My friend Michael, who reminded me that every person who ruffled my feathers revealed something that I needed to change in myself. There was Jonathan, who always prayed every day that he would be a better man than he was the day before. And my friend Karen, who taught me love and tolerance, and that gossip is not a tool of connection. Some of these individuals that I referred to as my ancestors died sober, while others died in the midst of their addiction. However, they all left behind the same gift for me: the wisdom of their journeys and the responsibility to carry on their work, spreading the message of hope that recovery is possible for everyone who seeks it. It's particularly poignant for me that we're holding this chapel today. On October 9th, 2011, I was preparing to leave the hospital after surviving an intentional overdose. 2 days later, I would spend a very long, very angry, tearful night in a holding cell in the Palm Beach County Detention Center, lamenting that my life as I knew it had come to an end. And it had come to an end, thank God. I didn't realize at the time that the loss of my career as a nurse and the subsequent year of probation was a blessing and not a curse. It would be another year before I could finally put down the bottle and accept that the message of hope applied to me too. Authentic spiritual liberation came during the second year of my sobriety, when I began to work one alcoholic with another to pass on that message of hope. A message that encompassed not just my victories, but every mistake, every relapse, every handcuffed ride in the backseat of a police car, every heartache that I brought to my friends and family, every part of my dark history. There's a picture behind me, and that was made by my friend Peyton, the one who called his God greatest of daddies, and who welcomed me into the rooms of AA in his easy New Orleans drawl with the words, "We are your family now, sweetheart." This work of art is called Our Dark Past. It hangs on the wall next to my bed as a reminder of what brought me to this place. The AA Big Book is a sacred text in my life, and it tells me that in God's hands, our dark past is the greatest possession we have, the key to life and happiness for others. With it, we can avert death and misery for them. Peyton passed away last year, becoming part of my cloud of witnesses. And his art, consisting of dozens of drawings and paintings that he created during the pandemic, covers the walls of our local AA clubhouse. As I walk on the path that Peyton and my other dear ancestors left for me, I never forget that though addiction does not discriminate, although it affects people of every age, race, socioeconomic class, sexual orientation, and gender identification, there exists a vast disparity in the availability of resources, especially for my queer and trans siblings, and my siblings of color. I also dedicate this chapel to them. And I want to conclude my part with these additional words from the 12th chapter of Hebrews, a verse that propels me forward. Therefore, lift your drooping hands and strengthen your weak knees, and make straight paths for your feet, so that what is lame may not be put out of joint, but rather be healed. And now I'm going to pass the baton to my friend Reed.
Good afternoon, friends. I'm Reed Cunningham. I'm a MDiv student here at United in UCC Studies with a goal of ordination and congregational ministry. So I'm grateful for this opportunity to provide this reflection and some comments on the experience of spirituality as in recovery. Like many of us that have recovered through 12-step groups, I've come to see my time in the 12-step tradition that my addiction was formed of a physical craving, a mental obsession, and a spiritual deficit or malady. Since we're in a seminary community, I want to speak more directly to the spiritual part of recovery. There are certainly people in recovery who do not think there's a spiritual component and have obtained good abstinence without concern for spiritual matters. However, many of us do believe in the need for spiritual growth, and given that many of the students at United will ultimately be in positions of chaplaincy or providing pastoral care, they will very likely encounter the intersection of spiritual matters and recovery in their everyday work. I don't speak for everyone. I speak for myself and what I've learned directly from others. I came into 12-step recovery having left the church for almost a decade, having rejected any notion of a higher power, let alone God. On first encountering statements about needing to find a higher power in meetings, I was highly skeptical. What does that have to do with getting sober? Had the idea of God been pushed, I would have just left. Thankfully, I encountered members of the group who suggested patience and taking time to see how my feelings would evolve. What I needed to be was open to the idea of a higher power and a spiritual center. That's all I needed, was openness. Over time, my physical cravings subsided and my mental obsessions lessened, but I didn't feel I was making a lot of progress until I started to consider and work on the possibility of a higher power. Slowly, I engaged in spiritual practices like meditation and even prayer. And while listening and watching others on their spiritual journeys and trying to learn from them, eventually I came to believe again, finding a more robust and meaningful God than I had of my upbringing. I want to stop here, though, and make a point. Reading 12-step literature without a discerning eye and listening to fellow travelers at meetings, it's possible to come to the conclusion that by taking certain steps and actions, a spiritual awakening is inevitable or guaranteed. From my own experience, it's not true. Such an approach ran the risk, particularly for myself, of generating the thinking that I was in sole control of my own spiritual matters. Such attitudes of control and self-sufficiency had been my undoing and a very destructive part of my addiction. While the meetings, the steps, the spiritual practices, the sponsors are all necessary elements, they're not sufficient alone for sobriety. Necessary, but not sufficient for sobriety, and certainly not for a spiritual awakening. When I came to meetings, I thought stopping drinking would be the end goal. But as I worked on my spiritual condition, I eventually understood that sobriety was not the end, but merely the beginning. Putting down the drink allowed for so much more. I've heard many stories of spiritual awakenings, sudden moments of the presence of God, flashes of light, all kinds of inspirations. My own spiritual awakening wasn't anything like that. I describe it more as an accumulation of sand in the ocean. Over time, the sand built up, and sometimes the sand was above the water, and sometimes it was below, depending on the tide and the motions of the water. But over time, it eventually grew to become dry land that survived any storm. And on that dry land, there became a place to nourish and grow and find a place for my new life to be. Like many new arrivals, I came to meetings at my bottom, really at a bottom, overwhelmed by life and looking desperately for a way to stop. I've since watched others arrive in their own versions of their bottoms. The longer I have come, the less and less sure I can tell who is going to make it and obtain sustainable sobriety. Newcomers sincerely work hard, attending meetings, working the steps, finding the sponsor, and more. But it just doesn't work sometimes. Others arrive looking in much, much worse condition, really at terrible bottoms, and yet somehow they find the thin thread that allows them to overcome their spiritual, mental, and physical deficits and find long-term sobriety. What is the difference between these people? What has happened? I'm reminded of a story from my own Christian faith tradition of Jesus traveling to Gerasenes and encountering a man possessed by demons. The man has been reduced to abject poverty, physically, materially, and socially. Naked, living in the tombs, he is completely outside the community. He is chained up, but his condition is so severe that he continually breaks free. In dramatic fashion, Jesus calls the demons and casts them out of the man and into a herd of swine that then plunge over a cliff into the sea. So much drama. The man is healed and relieved, returning to sanity. Like the man of Gerasenes, I've watched alcoholics and addicts relieved of their addictions and return to sanity. While their stories may lack the drama of drowning pigs, in many other ways their stories are indistinguishable from the possessed man of 2,000 years ago. I have a scientific education and training. I've watched people that were as abject as modern society can allow a human to fall, and yet they overcome their addictions. There's no scientific explanation for the relief, while others just like them never recover at all. There's no physiological or psychological explanation. Years of therapy and treatment haven't relieved them of their compulsions. That leaves me only with the spiritual explanation. In these alcoholics and addicts, God has worked miracles. When I am asked if I believe in miracles, I now say yes, because I've seen those miracles occur and I live with those people on a daily basis. The nature of these miracles wrought by God is not just sobriety. The miracles are much, much greater. They are greater than our wildest dreams and imagination can provide. One sober friend has had a complete transformation, an ex-gang member and heroin addict who's become a beloved member of our meetings. He now gives back to this community through service. When this ex-con sits there and says, here is the most important thing you need to know, it is love. When you hear that, a part of me breaks, and it breaks again and yet again. Another good friend who was a crack addict, reduced to begging for hits of pipe in a drug house when she was at her bottom. This same person tells the newcomer that we will love them until they can love themselves. These are extreme cases, but I've seen so many more with higher bottoms who have received new lives through the miracle of God's intervention, not just sobriety, but a whole new beginning. They are like the man of Gerasenes, not only relieved of their demons, but returned to their families, returned to their friends, and returned to their communities as new people. They each carry that contact with the divine that has remade and transformed them. Next month, it'll be 36 years from when I dialed a number I found in a phone book such things no longer exist, and picked up the phone when they were still attached to the wall and called and asked to find a meeting. I walked into that meeting looking to stop my addiction, and that from that day to now, I have never had another drink. What I didn't know at the time was that stopping drinking was the barest beginning of a new life's journey. What came after has exceeded even my wildest imagination. I have made the most unexpected spiritual journey, from non-belief to charism and call that has led me to United, where I continue to deepen my faith. There are days out of the corner of my eye, I can see something, just a little something, that almost makes me believe that maybe like my friends, God has worked a miracle in me too. Peace be with you all. And now we're going to pass it on to, I believe, Keith Felicity.
Yeah. Y'all, I'm going to put sound on. My name is Keith Felicity. I'm a MDiv in Interreligious Chaplaincy, and like a good chaplain, I may just end up crying during this part of the chapel today. Music has been a lot for me and meant a lot for me in recovery. This band I'm about to perform a song by, it's called Apes of the State. I started listening to them when I was first getting sober, and this song has meant a lot to me in that time frame. So this is a song called Strangers by Apes of the State. You know, lately I've been thinking about some things, like all the lovely friends I made in rehab that I'll never see again. 'Cause some of them are dead. And all the people that I met in bar bathrooms and in checkout lines I'll never see again. But in that moment, it was like we were best friends, just having conversations. 'Cause sometimes the people who don't know the things you've done are the only ones who'll bother talking to you. And sometimes strangers are the best people to tell your secrets to, 'cause they don't know you. You know, lately I've been thinking about some things I lost, like my mind, my heart, your baby blue eyes. Lately I've been wondering about things that haven't happened yet, like if I'll ever feel that way again. But the past already happened, so I can't spend today digging through that shit. And the future hasn't happened yet, so there's no sense in worrying about it. Just living in this moment. And today I wish that I could put new glasses on your eyes, and you can see the world the way I do through mine. 'Cause then maybe you wouldn't want to die, and maybe you wouldn't have to stick a needle in your arm just to survive. 'Cause I see myself in every single part of you, and I made it through, so I can't just sit back and watch you throw away your life. And I don't give a shit if I'm the last person on this earth to believe in you. I'll show you how beautiful it is to be alive. And I'll love you till you love yourself. I'll love you till you love yourself. I love you till you love yourself. I love you till you love yourself. I'll love you till you love yourself. Till you love yourself. I'll love you till you love yourself. I'll love you till you love yourself. And I'll sing until I love myself. Thanks. Amy, it's your turn.
Hi, everyone. I'm Amy Hedrick. I'm ending my first year. This is the last term of my first full year here at United. Like Stacy, I'm an MDiv candidate in spiritual direction. The first time I found my way to an AA meeting on an early June morning in 2010, feeling shell-shocked in disbelief that this was my life. I walked into the doors and Keith's song ended explaining the radical love that we find in the rooms and in recovery. And the first time I walked in, I was greeted the way that a lot of newcomers are greeted, with a big, cheerful welcome home. And home is exactly what I found in AA. I had that same sense coming to United. I started my first term and I felt like I was home. And the traveling from that first AA meeting to the doors of United has been part of my spiritual journey. So I selected a liturgy today from one of my favorite books. It's Liturgies from Below, Praying with People at the Ends of the World, that kind of captures the sense of being home. And it's called Somewhere There Is a Home. Somewhere there is a home, a place of return, of reunion, safety and security, of peace, a communion of friends, equals, not only in God's eyes, but ours too. Believing in that home gives us hope and strength. I will work to make that home a house for you, for we, for us. I want to live there with you, my children and yours, my parents and yours, my ancestors and yours. I will work to make that home today, tomorrow, and in the days to come. Join me when you can. We want to thank you all so much for joining us today, and welcome home.
Thank you, United Recovery Group, for sharing your experience, strength, and hope with these folks here in the chapel and online and in our community. Thank you for all you are and all you do. We will love you until you love yourself right back at you. So, so blessed.